Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Grind My Gears. I am Ashton Nimdari, and we got a good one here for you today. Before we get started, though, head on over to AshtonNimdariMMA.com and get yourself some awesome looking gear, just like that hat right there. And if you want a discount, if you want to get a discount and capitalize on some of that privilege, use discount code Brown Privilege at checkout and get you some of that brown privilege like I got right here. So today I got with me a good friend of mine, known him for over 10 years probably, Davin Yu. A little bit about Dav. I'll let him introduce himself, but a little bit about Davin and why we're talking to him today is because he is one of the best educators I know. He's an educator. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu junkie. He's a fitness junkie. Awesome dad, awesome husband, wonderful person all around together. I'm not going to give him too much more compliments, but don't want to boost that bald ego any more than it is. But amazing guy, and thanks for coming on today, Dad.
Thanks, Ashton. And don't forget, I was also your like a puncher's mitt for MMA.
A punching bag for plenty of years.
Yeah. Especially when we first started. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate all the big ups there. That's huge. That's huge. Thanks so much.
Well, you deserve it. Like one of the things about educate, like I'm educated. I consider myself educated. I went to school. I went to university, achieved that higher level of education. And one of the things, even though it doesn't convey in my lifestyle so much in terms of like MMA and stuff, is I do value education, and I do value good educators, and because as you grow up, and I actually, one of the kids I taught yesterday, I teach a couple kids training, and he has a little bit of trouble with school overall.
Yeah.
And I told him yesterday, I'm like, you can go through, in my total, when did I graduate? I graduated like 20 years old. So you can go through 18, 19, 20 years of school, and you're going to have a million teachers, a million educators that cross your path. And to be quite honest, not all of them are going to stick with you, and not all of them are going to be good. But
Right.
for me, the value of doing that education is there was 3 or 4 along the whole way, not just in university. There's 3 or 4 along the whole way whose teaching style, their charisma, their investment that really stick with you. And you'll find as you go into adulthood, I find sometimes I'm thinking of those people, and I'm thinking of, the faith that they had in me at certain points during my school curriculum, or the extra help that they gave me. And those are the ones that really stand out. So like, I mean, it's like any other profession. You're going to have, ones that really gravitate towards you, and then ones that don't. But what really impresses me about you and the things that you're doing is you're trying to be that for everybody. And that's a hard thing to do. And it's rare to find.
I first of all, I really appreciate that, and it's awesome how, like, sorry, my cat's around here, but you and I both kind of see eye to eye on that, because I grew up single parent family. So there was a lot of, I didn't notice it, I didn't realize it at the time, but being at school was paramount to my development as a human being, right? So, and thankfully I had amazing role models, like beyond teachers. Actually, one of the most influential teachers was a supply teacher.
Yeah.
And he coached a few teams, and he was dedicated to the team, and he demonstrated, he showed me what discipline was.
Yeah.
He showed me, hey, 7:30 practice. And he would coach us volleyball. And I remember someone would ask him, hey, you're so good at coaching volleyball, why not coach basketball? And I remember he was like, well, 1, I hate basketball. 2, I hate basketball. 3, I hate basketball. So, it was an introduction of like dry humor, but also like discipline and a lot of care, because, you not only did he know his sport, but he took his time, he took his time. And then another teacher who became a vice principal, he passed away sadly due to skin cancer, but everyone remembered him as an amazing educator as well. And he was always gentle, but he always knew when to he knew when to be stern. And
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
Well, that's huge for a young man, especially too, because
Oh yeah.
without divulging too much information about people I work with, there's some kids that I work with, and
Mhm.
they don't necessarily have that father figure around,
Yep.
or mother figure. It's just more of a disciplined structure in the house, and
Hmm.
it comes out to play, especially like when you're doing things like martial arts. Like I teach a lot of martial arts one on one, and
Yep.
it shows that discipline, that ability to focus, hone in on a task, take it seriously.
Hmm.
Because I find that when you come from that environment, you don't realize what when you have it good, like the ability to have an instructor
Yep.
sitting there teaching you, and sometimes when you come from those backgrounds, when it's not the kid's fault, it's just life.
Yep.
They don't get that, so when they have it, they don't appreciate it, and sometimes they waste it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You see, for me, when I hit grade 8, grade 9, I realized I had one of those exceptional coaches because in Hamilton, your middle school would feed into the high school, which is just next door,
Yeah.
right? And what happened after 5, 6 years of this same coach coaching our middle school team, and we went to championships. Guess what? When you go to grade 9, 10, you have 5 generations of the same coached players winning championships in high school,
Yeah.
right? And you kind of realize, like, man, that guy knew what he was talking about. And so that made me, and when I go and teach, I realize, you know what, these students will hopefully recognize what we do as well. Like sooner or later, they'd be like, you know what, that teacher really, really cared, and that teacher really knows what he or she is doing. So maybe I should listen, because in this world today, there are many teachers, and more teachers than you and I had. Because when we went into school, it's like our teachers would be the ones in the building, but now it's like, follow, keto such and such, and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I'm buying into it. I'm like, yeah, but you don't even know what, do you really know if they know what they're talking about? No.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly.
right. So whereas for us, we had to see the proof, like we had to see the proof in the pudding, and then be like, okay, I'm going to align my energy with this type of educators ways,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Well, speaking of that, obviously this last year and a half, for you, I would assume a challenging year and a
Hmm.
half, and for your colleagues as well.
Hmm.
And the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is, like, what were in the education, like you could see it from the outside. Like my two kids are young, so they're not directly involved in the education system yet.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
what were like these lockdowns? We all know that they don't solve much. I mean,
Right.
we have numbers that go down, big fucking deal.
Hmm.
But in terms of solving issues, it's creating more issues than solving. And it's something that people in higher authority power seem to be ignoring. And it's only the
Yeah.
ones like, as a fitness professional, I'm working with some of these kids and I see some of the issues. But you are working with kids all the time, like every single day, and then you
Yeah.
go home and you got two little ones as well. So what
Yeah.
are the tools that you've seen in the public education system over the lockdowns? Like, I'll say a couple off the top of my head, and you can add
Yeah.
more. But
Yeah.
there's obviously the increase in obesity. That's huge. I know many, 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 many kids, more than I have fingers, who have gained ridiculous amounts of weight over this last year and a half because of unhealthy eating habits, snacking constantly, having food readily available to them because they're at home.
Hmm.
That lack of physical activity, I've seen lead to depression, anxiety, a whole bunch of other things. And then, one of the more notable things is, I'm hearing a lot of reports of students and, suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering what else. have you seen? Because you're basically right in there with them every day. What have you like the tolls that this whole year and a half is taking on these kids?
Yeah, so being on the front line, everything you said is true. And so I'm privileged to have like a fitness tracker.
Yeah,
And the other day, I went in to help just kind of keep an eye on things for grade eights to come by, pick up their things, pick up their graduation gear, and take a picture with them.
yeah.
And just in being at school, I made over 10,000 steps. I wasn't even working out. I was just going up and down the
Just go
stairs
up
to
and
my
down regular workday, right?
yeah. Whereas, look, I'm fortunate to have a gym in my house, and I work out thanks to your training program and Professor Savosa, all the things I'm doing. But it doesn't meet the steps. Like
Yeah.
I'll hit maybe 7,000 as opposed to like 10,000 steps just by walking in a school,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So and you and I both know the value of walking. Like walking is one of those underrated, cardiovascular, mentally kind of like cleansing type of exercises, right?
Yeah. It's thoughtless. You do it subconsciously just because you need to get somewhere or you need to go do
This,
something.
yes,
So
that's right.
you're technically moving without even thinking about moving, right?
That's right. That's right. And 10,000 steps is very significant because if you multiply that by 5 in a normal week on a normal work day, on top of your hopefully workout routine, you're doing fine. You're doing okay. But so first of all, let's talk about the lack of activity. That is taking a huge toll on everyone right now. So we mentioned obesity in
Yeah.
students, but there's also that's happening in adults.
Yeah,
That's
well, 100%. That's
100%.
most
Yeah.
of the people who are reaching out to me for help in terms of training. It's because, hey, the last year and a half, I've been at home, haven't done anything, no motivation. I need somebody, right?
Yeah. It's that community aspect. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this kind of highlights the fact that a lot of people, when they go to a gym or they go to like phys ed class, it might not be for the program. It's because of that feeling of, hey, I'm part of something.
I'm there. I'm going to participate. I'm going to do some. I have a separate social group there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
like, me and you have been trained jujitsu for forever. I mean, I'm not gonna divulge a name. I've been doing secret jujitsu illegally for a year and a half, and I don't care. I'll say that out public. I'm not gonna say where. But
Sure.
one of the things I do miss is that time after you train super hard, we train, you roll, and then like you're just you have to go home. You're
Yeah.
like, okay, my wife is waiting for me. I have 2 kids at home. I got to put to bed. But then you just sit there and you end up talking to people and shooting the shit with the guys or girls, whoever the hell is there. And then
Yeah.
you look at your watch like, shoot, 45 minutes late. But when you leave, you don't even feel bad because of the conversation you had, even if it had nothing to do with jujitsu. Most of the time, it has nothing to do with jujitsu. Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
But you're just talking to people about life and
Yeah.
exchanging thoughts, energy. None of those conversations are negative. All while you're stretching and cooling down, and those are some of the key moments that I actually really miss, especially with you guys. Because those were that extra half an hour.
Yeah.
Really be mentally freeing. So
I
you know what I mean?
100%. Saj nailed it right on the head when we at the end of MMA, we always come in and do like, the high fives and,
Yeah.
and he said something. He goes like, united by, what did he say? United by this kind of like psychotic kind of like need to do what we do. Right.
Yeah.
And it's true. And it's true. I mean, like who what we do is a bit different. We go in and borderline, like you could potentially really hurt someone.
Oh, yeah.
And the amount of trust that we have with each other, like you sit down, you're like, my goodness, that guy really nailed me, and then he backed off.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of the point. You got to protect your training partner. You got to protect people.
Well, we're family, right?
Yeah.
We're family. Yeah.
I always say, everyone's like always ask me like, are you violent? I'm like, no. Like, I only turn that on for that 1 or 2 opportunities I get to go into a cage and they pay me to do it. Otherwise, I want everyone to go home to their family, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I see. I mean, I don't fight in the cage, but I'm more like the guy, and I get criticized for it, but I get better late in the round because after I get tagged,
Yeah,
I
you wake up.
I
Yeah,
wake up. I'm like, no, I'm not taking this. I taste blood in my mouth, and I'm not taking this. But I'm glad you're active. Like I'm active too. But this is where the gap for students is widening because I'm fortunate enough to run a school-wide phys ed class. So we have about 100 participants
yeah,
log into Zoom. 20 of them have their camera on, and you know what? And that's a lot of them have their cameras off for various reasons. Okay, so
yeah,
and personal reasons. So, but then you also have a handful who probably aren't really participating or who don't even show up. And again,
they just put the camera on and walk away, right?
yeah, they turn their Zoom on and that has happened, and we'll talk about that's a different issue because that's something that we didn't have growing up, Ashton.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, so these students, the handful of students who do participate on a daily basis, good on them, right? But then, how do you lessen the gap for students who are not active? What
yeah,
can you do? And I remember I had this really heated argument with my mom. I love her so much, right? But she starts out the conversation as, if I was a teacher. I was like, okay, here we go. Yes. I love my mom, and she's all,
yeah,
she's really wise, but I think sometimes people buy into this whole, hey, if I was a teacher, because I hear it so much,
yeah.
right? If I was
Well,
a teacher.
it's that
Hmm.
classic. What to me that what that is the ego. Because I mean, as a martial artist, you always hear it. If I got into a fight, if that was me, if that was me in that situation, I'd just throw him to the floor. I'm like, no, bitch, you won't. You haven't trained a day in your life. You got 6 rolls on your
Oh,
stomach. You got bitch tits. You ain't throwing nobody. It's the class. It's just the human ego speaking there because they want to participate in the conversation or the topic, but you know what you know what I mean. I've seen it.
yeah. No, it's that same person who says, get up,
Yeah,
get up,
yeah. When you're watching a UFC match or something, and they're like, "Get up, get up, get up." I'm like,
get
bitch,
up.
tell me how to get up.
Yeah, get
Fuck.
up.
If I
Yeah.
knew how to get up, I would get up right now. But
Well, one time, yeah, I'm pretty sure you remember. One time, I was on the ground and I went to get up and I got a knee right in the face from your. I think it was your right knee.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah. So at that point, I was like, yeah, you know what? Stay down.
Yeah,
Stay
stay
down.
there.
Stay down. But yeah. So I'm still trying to figure out how to lessen that gap, right? And the thing
Is there any help coming in? Like, do you guys see school board coming in to help bridge that gap and to help fix these issues?
well, see, this is what I mean in terms of like that gap, right? So let's just say let's just say schools were already active, like we're back in class. These students are already at like, hey, maybe I'll work out today. No, I'm not feeling well, or I'm not at school today. So they're already struggling,
Yeah.
right? So one of the main points I'm going to highlight is the pandemic has widened that gap.
Okay.
And in terms of, I'm still wrapping my head around, well, if I had $1 million, what would I do to change that? And I would address it indirectly, right? So I don't know if I think that you're asking that question a little bit later, but I mean, I do have some solutions, but it's not direct. You can't say, hey, I'm gonna pump in $1 million in phys ed and have everyone join in all of a sudden. That's not the issue. The issue is that these students are already engaged in other things. So for instance, my son, who's in grade 2, has already done I walk by him and he's switching screens. I'm like, what were you?
What were you, that the
What were
fishy
you?
thing? Yeah,
What were you playing?
I still do that with my wife right now. She's like, what were you looking at? I'm like, it wasn't porn, I swear. I just didn't want you to see what I was looking at. I want some privacy.
Yeah, well, and you know what? It's human nature, right? So, and I talk to my son as a parent and as an educator, right?
Yeah.
I go to him and I say, look, just be honest with me. What were you doing? He goes like, oh, I was playing a video game, Bloxels, right? And I said, look, just be honest with me, right? And true story, we're in this age of technology. In my class, this was back in September, I had a had a student shop online,
Shopping
right?
online
So yeah,
yeah.
because like I'm sitting here and my student is sitting across from me, and even by being 10 feet away, they're doing this. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Oh, this was in class. This was in class.
In class,
Uh,
and because I assigned them online work too, right?
yeah.
Because it's 2021,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Have to.
2020. Yeah, there are great resources, Ash. And one of the things that I love about today is that there are amazing resources. So it'd be like, hey, I did the lesson. There's some online work, and they're like they're plugging away. And I walk around, and all of a sudden there's no work done. I'm like, hey, it looked like you were solving
The issue, the
the
problem.
issue. Where's the work? Oh, it's in, and it's here. It's here. It's here. I'm like, oh, okay. And guess what, Ashton? He or she is not the only one doing this. He or
Oh,
she is not. Yeah, everyone.
my question is, like, I wouldn't fucking give my kid a credit card to shop online. Who the fuck's giving their kid credit card numbers to shop online at that age?
Buddy, I have no idea. I have
Yeah.
no idea. And then the other thing too is like even the great kids are on sorry, on Google chatting with each other.
Yeah.
Like even though they're sitting like across from like yo, and then so, and I was like okay, and again, I'm the type of educator like, hey, I saw that. Can you close that? Because I don't want to read anything. I don't want,
Yeah,
I don't want to be
you're not
scarred.
gonna be one of those ones that end up on TikTok screaming at the kids and throwing their phone across the room.
Like it's 2021. Hey, if you and I were growing up in that day and
I'd be
age,
using my phone like crazy. I'd be using my
100%, 100%, right? So I don't know if I'm answering a question here, but like that gap of engagement has just
wide.
disengagement has widened,
And
right?
it was already, and basically what you're saying, it was already there before the pandemic, but the pandemic just exemplified it, made it huge. And
Yeah.
well, and that's the other thing I wanted to ask you is, you just mentioned, we're online. You're one of the educators that accepted the fact that, we're going to learn online.
Mm,
Right.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so my question to you, because I have some experience with online learning from university, which is a lot different than the kids you work with. But
mhm,
what have been like the positives? Like, because I
mhm.
know there are positives, like you mentioned,
Absolutely.
and the negatives of online learning, because as a parent looking on in at
Yeah.
all of what's going on, and I do in-home training, so I'll travel to clients' house during the day, and some of them are stuck at home. And I'll show you. I'm just going to share what I see as negative first, and what I
Mm,
see as positive, and then I want you to tell me if I'm
yeah.
right or wrong. What people are telling me and what I'm hearing is like sometimes when you have this online learning, parents are doubling as not only doing their job, whatever their job is during the day, they're now doubling as half a teacher, half an enforcer, constantly monitoring their kids, which is a huge negative for the parent.
Yep.
One, because they can't get their work done or their day to day, but two, it's almost like, like you need a break from your wife, you need a break from your kids, take an hour or whatever. Kids don't even get that anymore because their parents have to be constantly engaged during online learning.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the huge negatives I've seen, and I don't know yet. We'll see how this plays out, but I want to know if in the future if it's caused maybe rifts in the home because kids don't get that that me time that they need, or the parents don't get that me time.
Yeah.
And one of the extreme positives I see from online learning is just, I mean, it's the classic thing nowadays is you can get university level education online. You don't need to technically go to an institution and sit there and listen. There are plenty of educators. One of my favorites, like Jordan Peterson. I do a couple of his. I listen to a lot of his educational stuff. You can get great educators, great people access online. You don't have to leave your home. So there's a huge benefit of that. It allows you to travel. You can still be enrolled in school and travel. So there's a huge benefit. What are the main things you've seen from online learning, this past year? And, is it here to stay?
Yeah.
Is this model sustainable that the school board has put out?
Oh man. Okay. So, I you and I are alike in the sense where I look back from a year ago, I took I took advantage of university level, college level courses to upgrade myself simply because guess what? I have a family. I can't go to, Seneca College, once a week for 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's not doable. So, I took courses on, a study on First Nations in Canada from the University of Alberta. I was like, wow, that's so cool. I got a little certificate on that. Upped my CanFit Pro stuff.
Yeah.
Also, I did a fitness kickboxing for Canada, working for them now in 1 year, like all these amazing things. Also, I was really fortunate enough this year to help out with fitness with our school board for educators.
That was one of the things though that I was really, really proud of you about, because
Mm.
not a lot of people would take that initiative in terms of, so good for you, man. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And Professor Omar is one of my role models where I saw how I remember our first few weeks of shooting footage, and we were kind of like, what do we do kind of thing. And now he's just like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
His vision's intact and it's effective. So, I take that same energy and do that. Now, here's the thing. We are adults. We're independent learners. If you sign up for an online course, you want to do it, you're going to do it.
Yeah, you pay money, you're gonna do it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly. And this is where I think you and I are educators. We also understand that not everyone who steps through the door of a school is ready to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. And when people sign up for training, if 50%, I mean, if you look at the business model of a fitness gym, they know that half of them aren't ready to
more than half of them.
Yeah, 80%.
I think statistically, it's from sign up to action is 2 months. So like a gym will benefit 2 months worth of membership or whatever the hell fees before action actually takes place. There's actual science on that. I'm not talking shit, people. So there's actual science on that. So that's just that's the way it is. It's the way human, intention to action takes place, right?
Absolutely. And that business model works, right? Because a lot of times that whole contemplation is like, yeah, I bought it, but I'm still contemplating. Like, yeah, okay, it's $60, please. I'm like, okay, no problem. So, but the thing is with it, and that's a different level. That's a higher level than where we are with kids, right? Kids are like, I don't want to go to school. I get it. We were there because they're physically growing. They're physically designed to not get up at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
We've all been through this. So, we are, but what we're trying to do is cultivate a culture of independent learning, cultivate a culture of a yearning for more and opening your eyes to a world where you're like, you know what, I do need skills, right?
But in your opinion, does online learning facilitate that?
No. So again, I'm going to go back to the whole, it broadens, it kind of exasperates, exacerbates the whole, the gap where students who are struggling are going to struggle more.
Yeah.
Right. So for instance, if I'm already struggling with fitness, when things are running normally, the pandemic is more likely going to make it worse. Right. Exponentially. Right. So, and I think that's what's caused. Now, I think that in years to come, we're going to be dealing with this rift. There is a rift. So I'll give you an example. I was teaching a grade 8 subject in math, and it's based on grade 7 experience.
Yeah.
Okay. And after I handed out the sheets, this was back in October or November when we were still in class.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they looked at me kind of like, I'm like, hey, is everything okay? And this is the beauty of actually being in the class. I can read and feel the emotion, right?
Read, feel emotion, hear the sounds, hear the,
Exactly. As a trainer, that 90% of what we do is like, okay. You know what? Okay, put it down. Let me go over it again with you. Okay.
Yeah.
But so one of them frankly said, Mr. Yu, we've never seen this before. And then I realized, oh my goodness, and I apologized. I said, look, I totally forgot that, back last year, starting in April to all the way to June, a lot of you already checked out.
Yeah.
Like this, and this is not it's hard to learn. So then I actually had to go back and teach these grade 8s, grade 6 fundamentals so that their grade 7 fundamentals are sound. So that maybe I can touch upon grade 8 material. So, and that's just with math alone.
Yeah. So do you think, if I was to make a generalization comment, do you think that most students are about half a year to a year behind right now?
And this is more of a guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
don't quote me on it.
generalization, not a
Yeah.
statistical analysis.
The best student is probably half a year behind.
Which is big. It's huge.
It's huge. It's huge. And here's the thing: as a fitness trainer, as an educator,
Yeah.
it's not linear. Like, so for instance, if I stop training, it doesn't flatline.
No,
It regresses.
It regresses, and then you're lucky if you work hard, your peak goes back up, like a stock market chart. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Continuously building peaks and valleys. Same kind of concept. So
absolutely. So there's a rift, and I think as a community, as a province, as a nation, we have to accept that. And my biggest worry for what has happened the past 2 years is because we're so data driven.
Yeah.
And guess what? What's going to happen is what's going to happen with standardized tests, because now the standard has changed.
Yes, exactly. Well, this is just me talking. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like there's a disconnect between what you just said with the reality of it is this rift and what people like Leche, whatever the fuck his name is, and them are preaching. And it's not just his government, not just that government. It's all of them. If it was another government in charge, it would be the same thing. There's a disconnect between what you just said, the reality, what's happening, and what they're saying, conveying in the media. There's a big disconnect between what you just said and what they're saying. They're claiming that students are on par. They're doing all right. Online learning is a great tool, mainly because of the fact their statistics are showing people are logging in, right? People are just logging in. And so statistically, attendance is great. But realistically, what we're just conveying and what we're figuring out, they're 6 months behindish, right? And that's just, and it's like a very big disconnect between this, what's going on really in the schools, and how these school board and government officials are conveying it.
Well, yeah. Well, no. Okay. Well, so let me paint a picture that might highlight what people are saying. Imagine that every household has a roof. Okay.
Yeah.
And we do. Imagine that a significant amount of households have a roof that is kind of questionable. Like there might be a leak.
Might be a leak, yeah.
Might be a leak. Okay. So you can take a strong rainfall here and there. But what has happened? Imagine if I said, okay, for the next 2 months it's gonna rain straight.
Yes. Just like a pandemic, right?
Exactly. Right. So then you're gonna have some households like, yeah, we're fine because we just got new tiles, new roof, new home, no problem. And then for myself, I bought a beautiful home, but it's got little leaks, it's got little holes. If after 2 years, guess what? The leaks are gonna flood. It's gonna flood. My big tree, it fell. Like all these things come into play, and 2 years later, you're gonna see a handful of people say, "Hey, we've thrived. We were awesome. We were fine." Yeah. And then you're gonna find a significant amount is like, our home is destroyed.
Well, I find that's the thing that's going. Not like I don't want to get into other things like COVID and crap, but I find like that's the thing that's going around is they'll handpick the certain cases that have thrived in these situations. They'll promote them or use them as the examples of what's going on. Because I talk to a lot of parents, train a lot of kids, and I train a lot of parents. And some parents tell me, "Oh, my kid is doing really well." Well, great for them, but then maybe that's because their personality is more introverted. They don't like to socialize so much in school. So this gave them an opportunity to thrive in a learning environment where they didn't feel like that. But
Yeah.
that's just a very small percentage. And I feel like that small percentage, media, these government officials are using as the example of why it's working or why we're going to keep this model up
Yeah.
for a while. You know what I mean?
Well, Ashton, okay. So how do I say this? You and I are in this profession, or, for fitness training and stuff like that, or even like jujitsu and MMA. We're privileged. We're privileged to have the income to be like, hey, I need this, I need that. I want to train. Sure.
Yes.
And then there's a large majority where, oh man, it breaks my heart, but single parent household,
Yeah.
if that,
They don't even
if
have money for a laptop or a tablet, right?
that's right, a lot of our students. So I'll touch that. I'll touch upon that in a second. This, and once they get the device, what about their Wi-Fi?
Yeah,
I mean, again, privileged to switch from DSL to fiber. Uh, Not everyone has that. Like the infrastructure might not even be there for certain communities, right?
in their home, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like, and again, please don't take this as an attack. But the thing is, if you and I have clients, they have a privilege of being able to pay for that.
Absolutely, that's a privilege.
It's a privilege. And again, for us, it's like we have the privilege to have the high speed internet, the devices for our students, for my kids.
Yeah.
But what this pandemic has highlighted is that the community where I teach, where the community teach, and I love my community, like from the bottom of my heart, I really do. But I also know that the living situation is fortunate, but it's not. It's not ready for the 2-year torrential rain.
Yeah, I got what you're saying.
So now so the biggest negative is that that learning gap, the engagement gap has widened. And let's not even talk about academics. Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about physical health. We have to start thinking about how we're going to get everyone engaged physically before we talk about academics.
Yeah.
Right. You and I aren't going to read a textbook if we feel like garbage.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
100%. Right. So, but a few positives, right? And there's a handful of that, is that there are those who are thriving with online learning.
Yes.
Okay. And that's great. That's great. But I'm as an educator, I can't celebrate that. I'm not going to throw a party because of that, because that's not, I'm more.
That number is not a significant number to generalize the population, basically. It's not a big enough number to celebrate, because it's not a accurate representation of really what's going on and what we're seeing. Right.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, if you take a look at our jiu-jitsu team, our MMA team, if everyone's doing well, and those who are competing are doing well, that's a good representation of our team.
Yes. 100%.
But if you only have that one or two guys or girls competing, and everyone's just like lost at a tournament, lost in a fight, you don't have a good team.
Exactly.
You don't have a good team. But from top to bottom, 1 through 9, baseball terms, if everyone's firing on all cylinders, like you and I both know, we have recreational athletes, but man, they're pushing us.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, this is a good team. So same thing in a school. Again, I'm not celebrating yet, but a few things that I've really enjoyed is learning about all the different online platforms, things that I can take back and use in my classroom for sure. Back, right when September starts, I'm using this platform.
Speaking of September, so from what I'm hearing is there's apprehension that there's going to be in class in September. And I'm of the firm belief that these kids need to get back in class 100%. What is the pushback right now? Why is there even a discussion of keeping the kids back home, because I know for sure they should have. I know for sure 100% in June they should have been back in class, even if it was for 4 weeks and they didn't do a goddamn piece of work and it was just to socialize.
Yeah.
See the friends and be around people. I know they should have been back in class. Around the world, kids are back in class.
Yeah.
Because let's be quite honest, this doesn't affect children like it affects adults.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I had COVID. My wife had COVID. My fucking kids didn't catch shit. They didn't catch nothing, right? They might have tried, but we stayed home. They didn't catch shit. There's no effects. They're running around the house like normal. I'm trying to push them away. Like, I have a 1-year-old. He's trying to climb on me. I'm like, nah, man, I got COVID. Motherfucker didn't catch shit. He was running around.
Yeah.
Flinging his dick like a little man does. No problem. Why are we even having this conversation that there's a potential that they're going to stay home still? And this thing is pretty much almost over. I wouldn't say, I think personally, that's another political discussion. It's going to go on forever. But why are we even having this discussion right now? What's going on that they're even trying to prolong this?
I think if you take a look at, I was reading a news article where I think in New York, I think schools are putting in two HEPA filters in each classroom.
Yeah.
Obviously the private schools have smaller numbers in terms of students in classroom. So, my response is it goes beyond, a spread of a virus. But definitely with the spread of a virus, a large class number is logically not a good thing. Like, you have a virus, an outbreak, and then large numbers. Okay, a
viral infection spread airborne, more people in the room. Yeah,
yes.
Sense, right?
So it's very simple. Then we had to reduce class size. So the argument goes, what is a reasonable class size? And I will highlight, and this is factual, that 2 years ago I had a class of 35.
Okay,
and so and 35, this is pre-pandemic, and then during the pandemic there was potential for the same number, and a classroom is not very. I have the largest classroom in the school, because I'm a grade 8. I'm in the intermediate division, but I do have pictures of one of my classes where it's just a sea of desks.
And this was during the pandemic.
No, this is before. But what I'm saying is that nothing really changed, like, in terms of like the parameters, in terms of like someone saying, hey, you know what? It's pandemic mode. We're gonna maximum number is this.
Well, is that a teacher problem? Is there not enough teachers?
It's also a funding, right? Obviously, if you had more funding, you would have more teachers, smaller classes. And so as a parent, imagine, you meet the teacher night and then the teacher has a lineup of, well, you have 60 parents now, because it's maybe, and it's because in that class there are 30 plus students. Yeah. That wouldn't sit well with me as a parent. Right. Whereas, you and I, honestly, some people on the internet, they exaggerate. But when you and I were growing up, our class size was not 35.
Certain ones, depending on what year it was, but not consistently. Put it that way.
Yeah, right. But for the most part, it's 25.
Yeah,
22.
I think the only time I had a big ass class like that is if I got stuck in one of those split grades, where I was, you know what I mean?
Okay, so here's the other thing: split grades is it's tough. It's tough because you're teaching different curriculums.
Tough on the educator, tough on the students, right?
Right, exactly. So the thing is, again, in a perfect world, you would have straight classes, because that makes sense.
Yes,
Let's imagine like a fitness class where you're like, hey guys, today it's going to be beginners and intermediates together. It's like,
no, it's hard to do that. Well, I don't even entertain that idea anyway. It's
right, exactly. Especially we're like, we're doing wall climbing. It's like I've never done this before, and then you have this ace guy. He's,
so basically, yeah, the comparison you're making is really good. That's probably why you're a teacher and I'm not. But
no, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, um, from a teacher's point of view, it is hard to manage a large class, right? And people think like, oh, well, you just stand there and teach. No, because a lot of people forget that these are students, these are children who are learning, right? And guess what? When they struggle at home, they struggle at school. And when a student needs that ear, when a student is having a breakdown,
yeah,
not, I can, if I had 25 students, it's easier to manage chaos,
yes, 100%.
right? But when you have 30 plus, all of a sudden it's like you kind of turn your back for a split second, and then all of a sudden you lose control.
So the magic number to you would be in that, 22 to 25, 26 student range is manageable for you, or would it have to be less?
Okay, like don't quote me on it, because like I teach in a grade 8 setting,
Yeah,
right? So it might differ for
younger
kindergarten. Yeah, okay. So obviously I'm not a kindergarten teacher, but I've seen kindergarten numbers. I'm like, how do you have 30 plus? Like, and so the solution is, well, we'll hire an EA. Yeah, but now there's more. It's still more.
Yeah, they'll add more. Yeah. They'll always
Yeah,
find a way to save money by adding more. Well, we added a assistant, but here's another 5 because you can manage it now.
no,
Right?
exactly, right. So it's almost, less is more, and that's why that's my kind of message to people is like, sometimes less is more.
How do we get that though? Because
It comes down to funding. It comes down to funding, and I think that's one of the things that myself as a teacher,
yeah,
I do stand by. Like, obviously, if I get, I understand the times. I understand the times. Budget cuts. We had to reduce costs. I get it. I really get it. But if the message is we are going to fix this problem, you have to hire more educators, and there are plenty of great young educators ready to jump in.
and
Yeah.
that's a segue into the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, because
Mm.
I know you as an educator. I also have family members who are educators, and I also am friends with other people who are educators.
Mm.
Um, let's be honest. Some of them should not be educators,
Sure.
but and I'm going to say from outside, what a parent looks like on the outside someone classifies as controversial. I don't give a fuck. That's why I do this shit. But it seems like some teachers really don't want to work in this environment, and even pre-pandemic, they really don't want to work. There's always an issue. There's always a problem. There's always, and we've just highlighted some of the problems that obviously can be solved with funding and more teachers. But say we did get that funding and it did come in, it just from the outside, and I could be totally wrong, but I think I'm halfway right.
Yeah.
So it just seems like some of them don't want to work. They're unwilling to work. They're making like excuses. Like I'll give you an example for me in my industry and related. Yes, there's a pandemic going on. I fucking caught it. I understand there's a disease. It didn't bug me, so I don't give a shit. I recovered well because I'm healthy and I take care of myself. And so yes, there's the risk of getting sick. 100%.
Yep.
There's always been a fucking risk of getting sick. Not just when COVID was around. There's always a risk of danger. In that setting, it's pretty less compared to what I do for a living, especially with martial arts and fight. So I'm used to taking high levels of risk, so for me, this is not a huge deal. Why does it seem like people are unwilling to work? Like for me, I would do anything to catch a paycheck.
Right.
You know what I mean? To make sure that I have money. Why are people turning down work? Why does it seem like some educators, not all, I'm not generalizing the whole population. It seems, but the small amount of them are kind of leaving this negative taste on parents' mouth, and we're seeing it, and we're like, why are some of these people doing this and acting like this way?
Yeah. one of the things I remember 2 months ago, I was sitting down and everything was running okay with class, but then all of a sudden, I don't know what it was. I had to get up and leave. I had to during my lunch break. I went up to my wife. I said, "I need to go for a walk. I can't figure out what's going on."
Yeah.
And I went honestly, Ashton. I went a little. I don't want to say crazy, but I had to walk. I walked, and it got to a point where when I saw a neighbor who I've never met before, I started waving at them.
Yeah.
Right, and they waved back. They're kind of like, "Yo, hey, how's it going?" But when I got back home, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like I feel better now, but for about an hour, I wasn't myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, so and again, it goes back to not just students, but even as adults. Like I'm fortunate, and I'm really thankful and grateful for that. But there are a lot of people who are dealing with so much already
Outside of the classroom, you mean? Yeah.
outside of the classroom. Hey, even inside the class, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes like there are issues happening inside, their education world, or things aren't going their way, or there are there are health issues, there are family members. The other thing too is that we have to remember as a community is that a lot of educators do have families. A lot of educators might have children who are struggling.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
just the whole idea that we have to put in X amount of screen time teaching while your kid barges into your class.
Yes. 100. Yeah.
Oh, and then that sound where like all of a sudden you hear 10 million Cheerios spray across the floor,
Yeah.
and you got animals who are gonna eat it all up unless that. Oh man, Ash,
The pressure adding up, and it. So, are you? Correct me if I'm. See if I get this right here. You're saying that external issues coming in compiled with the education system is for some people too much to handle. So
okay. Yeah, so you know how that expression, that's the last straw, or that's the thing that it's not even a last straw. It is a pile of bricks.
Okay.
Right, because here's the thing, right? We didn't switch to online learning. Okay, it's one thing to be like, hey, folks, we're pivoting back to online. Today's Friday, check in Tuesday, because let's be honest, Ashton. If you had to transition from your physical brick and mortar gym and back to online,
Yeah.
you need a day to get your equipment. Get
my shit in order. Get my shit in order. Yeah.
Yeah, even the lesson plans, like your plan of attack is different.
It's different physically and mentally. Yeah.
Mentally, right? So, and here's the other thing too. Again, your kids, you have to get them ready.
Yeah.
Right. So not only did the switches happen. Like honestly, Ashton, I sat down. It was this was back in April, I think, when we came back from April break. During recess, I sat down and I checked my Twitter, and it said teachers are going back online Monday. Oh no, tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
And this was a Tuesday, if I recall, right? And I was like, and I
in your head, you're just like, fuck, man. Right?
It wasn't even that, Ashton. I had to I screenshotted it. I sent it to a colleague and said, "Am I reading this right? Because I think I'm in this state of disbelief, because this would be our third what they call pivot."
Yeah.
Right. And Ashton, you and I both know what a pivot is in sport. This is not a pivot. It is I was telling someone it is a 10-yard penalty.
Yes, it's 100% change. I mean, me and Chris Bonfo talked about this in the last podcast, even for when he had to pivot his business online for the online classes.
Yeah.
It's taxing on the instructor. It's taxing on the instructor because and the way he described it and the way I agree with it, there's a limit to how long you can keep engagement on online learning, which then inhibits your creativity, right? You have to be creative and create. How much are you going to be creative as an educator before it all comes? You know what I mean? And I understand what you're saying. It's basically you're saying we're looking at some educators are mentally and physically burning out from this, and right or wrong, they're lashing out a little bit and refusing to work. refusing to do
Mhm.
certain things, and that's how
Well,
it is, right?
yeah, I mean, I think everyone has a right to make their observations. I just think that when I hit that point where I had to get up and walk, that was beyond my control. I There was a part of me that just took over. It said you got to get up, and I was in survival mode. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah, I know what you
It's
mean.
Yeah, it's like when you get clipped and all of a sudden you don't remember what's going on, but you're
Yeah,
just punching your way out.
exactly. Yeah, well, that's like drowning underwater. You're drowning. You're trying to swim, but something's holding onto your feet, right? Same thing.
Yeah, or as a white belt, you're on the bottom. You're just trying to bench press
Yeah,
your way out, and it doesn't work, right? But Ashton, I will say this, like the biggest difference is when you're physically in brick and mortar and you come up with this great plan for your client, you automatically see their appreciation and they're kind of like, man, this is awesome. For
yeah,
me as an educator, and this is where it's different from the fitness industry because they're paying you. They'll turn their monitors on.
yeah,
I stare at a screen with just names.
yeah, and it's just black, and
It's just
you have no clue if you're reaching through to them or not, right?
Yeah, and a rookie mistake. When I This was last year. I planned I did this great plan on the history of hip hop. I figured this is music. This is arts. It's language, media arts.
Yeah,
No one cared. And it hurt. It hurt, and it took the wind out of my sails, so to speak.
yes,
Right. And
yeah,
this is like the first time. Now I'm kind of like, hey, I'm used to it. I crack jokes about it, but I've built up that tolerance. But again, that I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that, and I'm not too sure. I can't do it
everyone's
for the long run, Ash.
not everyone's equipped to do it, right? Like
Yeah,
you're in my opinion, a special educator where you would pursue through these difficulties, but some of them may not have those tools to do it, right?
it could be why I've expanded into online, group fitness instructing and doing like the fitness kickboxing is because I do in the back of my mind, I kind of miss that interaction.
Yeah,
Right. I mean, okay, actually, it's kind of strange, but I'm looking at you on a screen and
yeah,
it seems
exactly.
normal. It seems normal.
Seems normal, right? Yeah.
Right. Whereas 5 years ago, why don't you just meet up at the gym and do
Let's just
this?
meet up at the gym and let's do this at the gym or at someone's house or something. You know what I mean?
But yeah, again, just to highlight, I mean, my heart goes out to not just educators, but everyone who has to change careers, drop careers, put the careers on hold because of something significant. Like, I mean,
Well, as you say that right now, sorry to interrupt you, but correct me if I'm wrong. I'm hearing tons of reports because I don't believe shit that I hear now. But I'm hearing tons of reports that there's a lot of turnover that's happening in the education system where teachers have reached that point,
mhm.
or and they're pursuing other career paths. Is that true? Is that what you're seeing, or is that kind of just media playing a little bit of games with us?
um, I can only address that by saying personally, that's what I've done.
Yeah,
Right? Is you kind of do a soul search and you say because the teaching industry has changed, the fitness industry has changed,
yeah,
and you kind of ask yourself, okay, is this what I want to continue to pursue? Because um, I don't know if things will ever be the same. Like I don't think so. I think there will always be an element of an online presence. Same with fitness. I mean,
yeah,
the fitness industry is, hey, someone's going to go the online route.
yeah,
We shop online.
yeah.
We read books online, right? So I think as much as it pains me to say, I think there's going to be an element of that will stay. And at the same time, I think it's only healthy for people to explore other.
Other options, right? Yeah,
Right, look at you. I mean, like you're doing podcasts, right? As in the beginning, you're talking about your brand, right? And I think you're kind of you're reaching.
expanding my reach. Like I'll give this example to people. I don't want to make this about me, but the pandemic to me was a blessing, not because of the
Sure.
fucking disease or whatever,
Sure.
because it gave me an opportunity to see work in another light.
That's right.
Right. The first, like, I've said this in other posts and shit. The first month and a half was really shitty for us, right? Because
Mhm.
at that time my wife was on mat leave, and
Yep.
then I'm in the fitness, and so I knew there was something wrong when I had like at that time I was booking stupidly, so I had like 11 people in one day, and and
Yeah.
I went from 11 to 1, right? The in cancellations because of workplace just shutting down,
Yeah.
and I'm like, something's up here, something's wrong.
Hmm.
And I kid you not, you can ask my wife, I'm not a fucking liar. I spent like 3 weeks just wide awake. I was working nonstop.
I think I remember because I remember I was like, yeah, Ashton seems kind of stressed out.
Yeah, 3 weeks
Yeah.
nonstop to make sure I had my online ready to go, to make sure I had to feed my family, right?
Yeah. Yeah, man.
And I didn't stop. I didn't stop one thing. I took every risk I needed to because I'm a risk taker, and that's what makes me, I would say, super successful, is because I take crazy risks. Sometimes I get rewarded, sometimes I don't. But
Sure.
in this sense, I turned the pandemic into a very great, like, me and my wife have never been doing better than we have been doing right now. And that's not a case of luck that, like, people, oh, you're lucky. No, I'm not fucking lucky. All right. I stay up sometimes. Like, I'll finish clients and I'll come home and I'll stay up till 3 a.m. to get other shit I need to get done. That's not luck. That's hard work. It's like when Elon tweeted, that tweet. I don't remember it exactly, but it was like, I spent, you know, 24 hours a day working, sleeping on a factory floor, and people are still trying to call me lucky.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard work. I put in that work, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I understand that you could have put in that work over the last year and still gotten nowhere because of just different industries, right? Different opportunities,
Yeah.
different mindset. And so I feel like that might be happening to some educators where they've been putting in that work with the kids,
Yeah.
doing that online grind, that online hustle. The reward is not showing up
Hmm.
financially too,
Hmm.
because I mean, that's another discussion we're going to talk about in a second, but financially it's not the most rewarding career ever, right? And
Okay.
then you're
Yeah.
seeing other educators, like I'll take Jordan Peterson for example. Brilliant
Hmm.
mind, one of my favorite people to listen to. I don't give a shit if people are on here listening liberal and they're like, fuck that guy, fuck you. I don't give a shit. I love the guy. Brilliant educator. I guarantee you right now he is making 100% more money doing what he's doing outside of the classroom, still educating, but
Hmm.
he's not in a physical university setting. And
Hmm.
he's probably making a lot more using online tools and
Hmm.
different variations of education than he was in there. And it's
Hmm.
probably more rewarding for him, his wife, his family, but he's still getting to do what he wants to do, but he's not in a formal education setting, right?
Yeah.
Because the world has shifted, right? You
Hmm.
can do
Hmm.
that. You can get out of formal education, still educate, and make way more money than you would be working for a board, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the things that I acknowledge in your profession is that, to be quite honest, and I think you would agree, it's really not that hard to stay in shape.
No.
It really isn't. But the thing is that the tough thing about the fitness industry is that you have to be cutting edge in every aspect.
Yes.
Your online presence, your techniques. Hey, I noticed that those guys are using kettlebells. Do you use kettlebells? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, okay, so I got to certify in that, even though, like, is it necessary? No. Is it good? Sure. But I think, but in a sense, teaching has sort of become like that too, because we have to be a little bit more cutting edge because we are competing against students who are on their phones.
Yes.
And the thing is, they will place their trust in what they see on TikTok versus
You. Yeah.
me, or let alone cbc.ca. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, are you?
Well, CBC is a questionable fucking website. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah, but I would take that over TikTok any day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right. So, and just to highlight, this is a true story. one time it was Terry Fox fundraising. And I said, hey guys, I'm gonna put in a toonie. Can everyone bring in a toonie? We'll have like $60. We had a total of $5 as a class. So then I sat down and I didn't get upset, but like, hey guys, you guys are always talking about Fortnite. They pulled together, all the students pulled together, they tallied it. And they came up to me and was like, sir, we have a number. Can we show you how much we have put in Fortnite together? I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
$1,000, Ashton. So then my next question was, can you show me what you guys get from it? Like, no, it's virtual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something is wrong here. So we have a Terry Fox fund, which is physical, and it goes towards a foundation physical. Meanwhile, they're just throwing money away at a game that exists virtually.
Yeah. Have you seen Roblox? That thing is genius.
Yeah.
I'm an investor. I was in. I'm in. I don't give a shit. I made money. That is a genius. I know so many parents who are blowing wads of cash on Roblox for their kids.
And but this is what you and I are competing against, right? In the education industry, the fitness industry, we're competing against something that doesn't even that doesn't even really exist, right? And they place their finances, their hope and trust into these kind of things. So, going back to what I was saying, I think that with the pandemic, some people will recognize that they have to change their plan of attack.
Yes, some teachers, yeah,
right, and then you can't fault people who won't change their attack either. I mean, I really believe that if this pandemic were to go on for a bit longer, naturally people will adapt. But let's be honest, it really hasn't been, although the pandemic has been around for 2 years, a year and a half.
Yeah,
we've been thrown back and forth, pivoting. You can't adapt to that, right? It's like you and I.
By the time you get used to one, you got to go back to the other. By the time you get used to one, you go back to the other. So there's no time to fully establish a certain game plan and approach.
That's right.
Right. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
It's difficult, and it doesn't. That's where we are right now. Where is the end to it, right? Because there's got to be an end to it, and there's got to be a certain set point where you're in class.
Yeah.
But I can still use some of those online things. But and basically what it's like right now is we're going in a vicious circle. And based on what I'm hearing, and I'm sure you hear a lot more than me, doesn't seem like it's gonna rectify itself in September.
I still think we're still in the thick of it, and because right now, I don't know, you probably hear the whole talk about hybrid teaching. Again, would that work in the fitness industry? Maybe, because you have people who bought into they're paying you. They're like, hey, you know what? I want to show up to class. I'll be there.
Yeah.
But for me, again, I'll go back to the whole school isn't just about here is page 35. I'm going to teach a lesson. No, 50% of school is actually character building.
Character, social building skills, connecting with other human beings.
Right? Yeah. Well,
sorry to interrupt you, but the hybrid model would assume that parents are home to fucking monitor this shit, because grade 8, grade 7, grade 6, like, doesn't matter. Someone has to be home, especially in that age group.
Yeah.
Can't just be at home chilling by themselves. Someone has to be at home on it. So that would be an assumption that on those certain days where they are in virtual class, there is somebody there. And that's a big assumption, because people are going to be going back to work soon, right?
Well, okay, so this has happened too, where it might not be the parent. Okay, they might be at grandma, grandpa, or I've had this where they're home being watched by an older sibling who is maybe in a higher grade. And guess what? if big brother, big sister, big cousin, if they're gaming,
You're gaming, right?
you're gaming, right? So, um, you bring up a good point. I mean, the people who are in hybrid, are they going to be engaged? Like when I'm doing a lesson and people in front of me are raising their hands or asking questions, and the people on the screen are just blank. How do I assess? How do I help them? And then vice versa. And I tried it out this year where I had a few students who had to self isolate. So
Yeah.
I said, hey, look, just for half an hour, I'm going to do a live lesson. I'll do a live cam, see how that works. It failed big time because during that time, that's when I was being paged. That's when a student was having extreme difficulty with the task and just needed one-on-one attention. And then an hour later, the students are just sitting there and be like,
Hey.
hey, Mr. Yu, how about me?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you know what? And I told him like, yo, I apologize, but this ain't gonna work.
Do you
I'll
think
find
that
a.
hybrid model would work with a smaller class size, but like 20 or
Mm,
less? Or do you think it's just a doomed kind of?
yeah, it takes. You know what it is? It's a house of cards.
Yeah.
It could stand. It really could stand. But the thing is, it takes one thing to knock it out. Now, let me ask you this, Ashton: would a hybrid model work if a supply teacher came in?
Hell no.
Right? So and
Yeah.
the reality is, Ashton, and people hate on teachers for this. I get sick. I'm a healthy guy, but when you put me back in the class, I'm in a school setting. I'll I'll get the cold. I'll get the flu. And I'm at a workshop because I'm upgrading my stuff. I have to go travel, or I'm doing professional development. Or I'm taking my kid to the doctors.
Yes, because you have a life outside of that.
Yeah, I have a life outside. Um, and I've had supply teachers this year say, and again, not the fault of the educators, but they're like, hey, if you use this in this platform, count me out. I'm like, okay, no problem. Please, thank you, but I
So
please.
basically, what this boils down to is we have to do a lot more with educators and with the board and with funding to come up with a way more comprehensive model that can adjust with or without the teacher, the primary teacher being in the classroom.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, so you got to think of it as like a team. Okay, so your star player gets injured. Okay, next up,
Yeah.
you're still going to do well. But what's happening here is that there's so much on that one player
Yes. Okay. It's
that
like
when they're
Kawhi with the Raptors, right?
yeah,
They
exactly,
ain't winning
yeah,
shit without fucking Kawhi, right? So it's like
yeah.
Kawhi with the Raptors. The teacher goes down, and then you're going down. Everything's going down with it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much focus on that's a teacher's job. No, it really is a community. I remember 5 years ago, I would have like a list of amazing supply teachers, right?
Yeah.
And guess what? I had absolutely no fear of not being in school for that day because I knew that Mrs. So and so, Mr. So and so are in, and the class. I come back, the class is like, we missed you, but it was a good day.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that that's what we have to consider too, is that like the whole plan B, plan C is
It's not
is
there.
it's not it's not there. It's not there. And you're looking at a year-long campaign. You have to have a plan A, plan B, plan C.
D, E, and F too, probably.
DNF, right? So yeah.
So saying that, well, we know the school board's on one end, but we also know there's something called the unions, and
Sure.
I'm not a big fucking fan of them. Not the unions that are for the teachers. I'm just saying unions in general. I've never been a unionized employee, and not because I don't want to, just because of where my career and my life has taken me. But I want to highlight something. Back in 2019, teachers were on strike. There was a big work action thing going on. There was a strike. The pandemic happened, and that wasn't resolved yet. That whole ordeal from 2019 going into 2020 wasn't really resolved. All of a sudden, the pandemic happened, and it got resolved a little bit. The union came to terms. Nobody gave a fuck anymore because we were in a pandemic, and so that was kind of just under the table. It wasn't very highlighted because of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Why does it seem to me that
Mm-hmm.
during normal times, the union and the government have been at odds, but
Sure.
during this time specifically, the union and the government seem to be functioning cohesively fucking well all of a sudden? It just seems like when when Dougie Doug goes on the fucking this is what bugged me significantly when he goes on the news back in May when people were asking, are we going to get kids back in school in June?
Mm.
And he used the term shareholders. I have to talk to the shareholders. Now, whenever I do a lot of investing personally, when I hear the term shareholders, I don't think of people who give a fuck about what's going on. I hear that
Mm-hmm.
people are trying to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Why does it seem like they're in agreement during this time as opposed to when we're not in the pandemic? And will it just flip flop back and forth? And what's going on with that?
Well, I mean, okay, so all right, so to highlight, just to go back a little bit, yeah, there was okay, so the whole strike, I think it's important for me to let people know how that even starts, right?
Yeah.
So there's a fair process because we're unionized. We have what they call collective bargaining, which means you can sit down at a table and say, hey, Ashton, I think we're justified to ask for a 2% raise. In look at the rate of inflation. Cost of living's gone up. And it's fair. It's fair to have one party say, these are our terms. What do you think? Now, obviously, logically speaking, when you do that, there's something called a compromise. There's a conversation, right? And you and I go through this a lot when you talk to family members. Hey, I have an idea. I want to go to Canada's Wonderland. They're like, no, let's go to Great Wolf Lodge. And then you have a compromise.
Yes.
Right. So that what happened was there was a lot of non discussions and basically
on whose end? On the union end or on the school board?
Well, so basically your unions, your boards, sorry, I might not be 100% accurate, but basically the government wasn't willing to it was more like take this.
Okay.
So and it's like it's almost like saying, Ashton, we're going to Great Wolf Lodge.
Yeah.
Or no trip, kind of thing, right?
Okay, I understand.
Yeah. So there's a process to that. So as a union, there's like a 10-step. Again, I'm just kind of guesstimating. Like there are like, hey, you know what? Please listen. Let's have a third party. Let's have someone to
a mediator.
A mediator. And that was all there. And the whole, and then the process is long. I think a lot of people think that, hey, teachers disagree with that, they're going to strike. Yeah. That's not how it goes. A strike is a very, very last resort, and we will protest. So one of the last things we do is probably withdraw from extracurriculars. And I got it, Ashton, man. I think one of the things that when you look back at your previous teachers, we do a lot of extracurriculars, and be it 100%. Reading.
I don't think any parent will doubt that. No parent will doubt that.
A lot of people think it's part of our job.
Well, they can go fuck themselves, but it's not part of your job. But you do that because you love it, and it's just there's tons of stuff I do in my profession that I don't get paid for, that I do because I love it and I care about my clients and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna play devil advocate for a second because I'm not I'm not disagreeing with you or the teachers here, but like,
yep.
I got caught onto this guy through Joe Rogan's podcast, Peter Schiff. He's a really smart gold guy. He owns a tons of gold companies, really huge in the States, fucking brilliant entrepreneur. And he was talking about, this was back, it might have been 2019, 2018 when I heard this conversation where he was talking about Donald Trump's driver. Was all disgruntled and pissed off because he wasn't getting paid enough. Let's be fucking honest. You're Donald Trump's driver. You're getting fucking paid. He didn't.
Yeah.
Here's where I'll play devil's advocate is when I sign a contract to fight, for example,
Mhm.
I signed to show up at 170 fucking pounds or less. I
Sure.
sign that I will potentially die. I sign that I will show up and I will do the job. There's no fucking going back on it. You understand what I'm saying? When
Absolutely.
I put my
Absolutely. Yep.
name on the paper, when I sign an employment contract, I sign a contract. I have signed to those terms as a man or as a woman. I am giving you my word for exchange for services.
Sure. Yep.
On the outside, it seems like every 3 or 4 years, the union is trying to go back on that word. Like if you signed something, right? Or you understand what I'm saying?
100%. 100%. Yep.
The terms. Why do I have the right to try to change it in the middle of the terms? That's like in the middle of a boxing match saying this is the 6th round. This guy is fucking really good. Let's renegotiate for the next 6 rounds before I continue, right?
No, I really appreciate that observation because I think that's the perception that a lot of people have. But so let's just say our contract is every 2 years we can renegotiate.
Yes.
It's essentially the same as an employee going to employer. Hey, it's been 6 months now. Can we talk about a change in responsibilities or increase in pay?
Yeah.
And then they'll sit down like, hey, you know what? You've shown up. You've done overtime. You've shown responsibility. Yes, you deserve, even if it's a lateral move, some sort of movement. So, and that's what collective bargaining is, where we sit down at the table and say, rate of inflation has gone up. These are just
generic.
Examples. Like there's way more. There's way more things. But at the same time, Ashton, our workload has increased. Right. When you go from 26 students and you're now writing report cards and calling 36 parents. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, they have their independent education plan. So with their IEPs, and you go through the process of writing them out. And let's talk about managing 30 plus kids.
Yeah.
The workload has changed. The workload has changed significantly. So I think that it's always fair. And if you take a look around at other industries where they get like a 2 or 3% raise, it's only fair to say, I think that we should be considered. Let's consider that.
Well, I think I'm not disagreeing with you. I think teachers deserve more money. I think what leaves a sour taste in people's mouth is there was an agreement before, and it just there's the public perception, right? Mm-hmm. It may not even be true because, like you're saying, collective bargaining is different. If your term is coming up every 2 or 3 years, you have the right to negotiate.
Right.
But it seems like in the middle of the term, there's always a fucking problem in the education system. Like the teachers and educators are always they always want to renegotiate in the middle of the term. Am I correct or wrong? Or it just seems
no. Okay. All right. So you know what? That perception might be. The perception is, I acknowledge that perception. However, the collective bargaining process starts early. So it's almost like, okay, you hear about this in basketball. You're like, hey, that guy's contract is due by the end of the season.
Yes.
They have the right to start negotiating halfway
before
through.
the end of the season.
Exactly.
So basically, the public perception is that teachers are being disgruntled and being assholes in the middle of their contracts, when really it's the collective bargaining is coming up and they're putting their chips on the table. That's really the clarification of what's going on.
Yeah, there is a thorough process where they survey employees, right? And as they should, because the point of the union is to hear the collective voice. And so when that process starts, and I think it's pretty crafty on the part of the government too, where the process starts and it's already like, no, take this, and all of a sudden like they're not happy with it, so guess the strike's coming. I guess and then we're like, no, we don't want a strike. Like, for the most part, educators love their job. I mean, but we also love being acknowledged and financially supported
Yeah.
for
Well, you want to make sure if you're putting in that extra effort, if you're doing the extracurriculars, if you're taking the time to call parents and all that shit, you want to make sure that your fucking kids can eat too. You don't want to be going home broke.
Yeah,
Putting a
absolutely,
lot of shit, right?
absolutely. And again, it's easy for me, and I don't want so it's easy for me to say it's this government. I gotta be honest with you. For the past 10 years, it's been
Yeah, there's
from
been liberal governments, conservative governments, all the fucking same shit. Like we can't.
yeah. And again, I'm not trying to be political here, but the
Yeah,
reality is it hasn't been a smooth. I for the past 10 years, I don't recall a smooth collective bargaining
process.
process,
Yeah,
right? And see, I think it's easy to target teachers because the first thing people say are like they get paid, just close your mouth and teach.
yeah.
We it's it teaching, like I said, you and I both understand it's not just
Well,
as easy as
I've
teaching.
been guilty of that phrase that you just said too, and
Hmm.
that's just sometimes out of anger or just sometimes out of situation. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's the common thing. It's just you get paid, shut up and teach, or you get paid,
Yeah.
shut up and bring me my fucking food, right? This is human nature,
Well,
right?
and here's the thing. I mean, like like we have great coaches, right? And I pay X amount here. Will I get the same quality if I go somewhere else? No, it is different. And the thing is, you start to value what someone does outside of what they're paid to do.
Yeah,
And I think um, when you realize just how much the worth, you realize, hey, it's worth thinking about how much I'm paying, this person. Um, so yeah, and the thing is that people are like, well, teachers get their summers off. I'm like, sure. I think most professions you get time off,
yeah.
and and at
It
the
just
same
so
time,
happens that your time off is fucking grouped into the summer. You get this, yeah. It just so
when
happens.
else when else would you have it? Like like
Yeah,
kids can only take X, like, okay, kids can only sit in a room for so much. They're meant to be kids. They're meant to go and do their thing. And I won't lie, actually, it's a great job. It's a great job. I won't lie, but I will also be honest with you that there are some of us who will take time off to relax and rejuvenate. But guess what? Once a certain date hits, I'm starting to get ready for September, because that's how much preparation it takes. And the other thing too, Ashton, is that I'm fortunate to know what my allocation is for next year is grade 8, but
yeah.
there, because of budgeting in September, this is a true story, Ashton. A handful of educators were relocated to a different school, different different assignment, like that.
Like that. And they were preparing for one thing the whole time, and then all of a sudden it's just changed. Yes.
Ashton, man, they sat down in our staff meetings, like, just getting things right, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, so and so, so and so, so and so, you're now online.
Mm.
And I spent the summer with them planning online, and you're kind of like, okay, you know what, this take that one.
At some point, you're gonna expect some of them to just say "fuck it" and throw in the cards, right? Right?
Why? Yeah. Why?
Put yourself
Why?
through all that effort, all that preparation, all that stress,
Mm-hmm.
for depending on I don't know how the pay structure works there, but say it's a more junior person that hasn't been in the board that long for a shitty paycheck when I could go do something else and make a whole lot more and be a lot less stressed out.
That's exactly it. I think it comes down to your well-being.
Yes.
Your well-being, like, is this good for your well-being? And again, I'm fortunate to be, up there in the seniority list, but I talked to someone who's been teaching for over 8 years now, and every single year it's a different school.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
is it, I guess that's why I want to talk about, because not many people have this conversation about the unions and what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good thing to understand it, because on the outside, it just seems like teachers are being assholes. But when you really boil it down and you come to that, there's a collective bargaining, comes every 2 or 3 years. So then it brings a little bit more clarity to what's going on. They're not being assholes every 2 to 3 years, guys. They're being assholes when it's time to renew that contract and come up with a new term of agreement. Because I think a lot of people's perception is you put your pen to paper, you sign the fucking contract,
Yeah.
live up to it. Well, here's the reality: the contract's coming up to an end.
That's right.
We were trying to renegotiate our terms,
Yep.
and it just so happens that, well, both sides are playing hardball, and we're going to do a little bit of striking, and
Yep.
that's why it's important for us to have these conversations and to put it out there, because not a lot of people are willing to have that conversation, and they'll pick one fucking side. They'll be like, no, teachers deserve more money. No, you guys signed, you agreed, fuck you. Like, let's fight about it. Whereas the reality of the situation is every couple years, things need to be renegotiated. I do agree teachers need more money, but I also do agree that money's got to come from somewhere. And that's tax dollars, that's other stuff. So there has to be some sort of meeting in the middle. But
yeah, I mean, you know, education costs money. Education is an investment, and let's not even talk about educators. Let's talk about the buildings.
Oh yeah, they're shit.
Yeah,
I went to West Hill Collegiate. It was a fucking pile. It was like I was there over 20 years ago. It's still standing. And when I was there 20 years ago, it was an 80-year-old building or some shit like that. So
you I mean, you could walk into a school and you wouldn't know what year you're in.
Yeah, that retro.
Right? It's really retro. I mean, you know, I feel like I'm still in grade 6, but this whole pandemic has also put a huge spotlight on like I said, remember that analogy? I said the leaky roofs.
Yeah, our
schools, and literally or figuratively, have ventilation issues.
Yes.
Okay. There's no in some rooms there's no ventilations, and obviously, so I'll give an example. In my classroom, I'm on the second floor, so obviously your windows have to be safe, right? They can't slide open so that things or
people can jump out. Yeah,
sure. Right. Miss you, I hate you, and then it's like yeah. But the thing is, like, they open up like this. Here's the window. That's as far as the window opens.
Yeah.
My kids can't even throw things out the window. They throw it out and it bounces back off the window back in the class, right? Right. So, I mean, what kind of ventilation are we getting there? I mean, it's yeah.
I'm not defending anybody because I don't fuck the government. You know my views on some of this shit, but in the defense, it does take time for some of those things to happen. It's just the time is not available right now. We need to get these things handled really fucking quickly because of how fast the world has changed. So that brings me to, like, we'll wrap this up in this way. What after the last 2 years, it's been a clusterfuck in the education system, with 2019 with the job action stuff, going into 2020 with this bullshit coronavirus crap.
Mm-hmm.
What are we looking at? Like, what is the outlook as your educator? What can we do to fix what's going on? What do we have to be more aware of? Because as a parent, for example, my daughter is supposed to start school next year.
Mm-hmm.
And, personally, this is our personal decision. I don't want to send my child to kindergarten wearing a mask and doing all that shit. Where do we go from here? What can we expect? How do we fix this? Because I know it's not a teacher problem. And it's not a school board problem. It's an entire problem that we need to fix altogether. How do we get there? What do we got to do to make 2019 and 2020 go away to get something better for our kids, right?
Well, I mean, again, it comes down to the direction from the government. And again, I could play the game all day and hate on the government, but at the same time, as a nation, we're all going through this together, where this is brand new. So suffice to say, the communication from up top has been really confusing. Like, we've gone through, hey, it's level 1, level 2. Okay, no, scrap that. Color scheme: yellow, green, red. There's another level beyond red. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Right.
It's called like fucking depression and oppression and communism. Yes.
Yeah. It's tough. And the whole thing. So, as you know, like we had brick and mortars, like, kids in school, and obviously on paper, the cohorting on paper makes sense, right? Like, for instance, this grade will stay with this grade, this teacher stays with that grade, and there's no switching. Okay, that makes sense. But as an educator, I already said, but what if you have a family that has one kid in grade 4, kindergarten, and a high school kid?
Yes.
And so they come back, and then that household gets infected. Like, remember, we are dealing with something that's exponential, not linear.
Yeah.
Right? A virus is exponential. So this, again, it's a house of cards. My advice is, for parents to, be compassionate to educators, be compassionate to, people who are running the government. I mean, again, we have ample negative things to say for both. We really do.
Yeah.
But I think that,
well, it's easy to point the finger at one or the other, but nobody ever wants to point the finger at themselves, right?
Yeah. And here's the thing. I'm privileged, but at some point, I remember one time I went up to my own kid during class. I said, you know what? Shut it down. Just go play with your toys and just relax. But it's still class. I'm like, trust me.
Yeah.
You're fine. Or right after school, we go to the park and play. So I think as parents, don't feel as though you have to be the teacher. You already are a teacher.
Yeah.
You right. And involving them into simple things like cleaning the house together, doing laundry together, playing board games. So one of the things that I've done this year with my son every Sunday is go on Zoom with my neighbors and we play Monopoly together with my board and their board, and my kids are involved, and we really enjoy that social aspect. And the other thing is don't stress out too much, because everyone's having a rough time.
Yes.
Everyone, like my son had 4 different teachers this year.
Yeah, right. You're a teacher too.
Yeah. So, and I'm kind of like, every teacher had a different style, a different way of, sending work, or where they place their work in what folder. And my son was like, I don't know where the work is really. And then so we say, hey, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. But I think last but not least, it's ironic because before the pandemic hit, we were already saying screen time is too much for kids.
Yes.
Screen time, too much screen time. Now we're saying, hey,
more screen time,
and then no screen time. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Now we're doing 8 hours or 7 hours.
Yeah.
8 hours for sure, especially if you're doing work, right? If you're doing the homework. So find something to do that's off screen.
Okay. Yes. That's good advice. That's good advice. The last thing I want to say before we wrap this up: should kids be in class in September?
100%. They should have been in class. With the right things in place. Like as teachers, we want that. We want, there are some perks and benefits from teaching from home, but being in school, time flies. I know a lot of teachers, we just love teaching. Kids love being at school because they're with their friends.
Yes.
They're with their friends, and they love that interaction. And, so yeah, but in saying that, things have to be in place. It has to be more than sign this paper if you are healthy, because that's, I'm like, now we're wasting. Now it's like, I'm trying to wrap my head around that one. But I
want to end it this way: is my view of it. If vaccinations are working, if they do work, if that's what we are being told works, and herd immunity is a thing, and get the kids back in fucking school and let's go. Right? If these things that you guys are promoting, if the government are promoting, these are the things that are working to get us out of this situation, then if it is really that effective, if you are not lying to us, you're not lying to the public about how effective these things are, get the fucking kids back in school, let them learn and let them be kids, because at the end of the day, we've already taken 1.5 years from them of being kids. Anything more will probably lead to a really big fucking problem in this country, and not just this country, a lot more. But this country and this province in particular, because we are way behind the rest of the world. We are way behind the rest of the world reopening. We are way behind the rest of the world moving on from this. We're stuck in this vicious cycle that if we are being told the truth, if what they're saying is the reality, then in September, kids need to be back in fucking school and being kids again, and not
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if we continue on with this path, obesity is the obvious one, but then the other thing is injuries are gonna get high,
Yeah,
right? Because like everyone's bones are softer, people are falling down, the coordination's not there.
yeah,
You know, um, online addiction, right?
huge.
Gambling is gonna be there. Video
Yeah,
game addiction, depression, social. It's a whole negative plethora of negative things that can happen if we don't do something
now,
significant to change. Yeah,
yeah,
and guess what? Guess what? It takes money.
yes, it takes money.
It takes money.
And I've always said this to my wife, and I'm gonna end this on this shit because it's fucking always true. I don't give a shit. I don't mind paying more taxes if I can sign a fucking paper and says it goes directly to education.
Sure.
If
Yeah.
if I am paying more taxes and I have no fucking clue where it's going, I am skeptical. But
Yeah.
if I am paying more taxes on my fucking, and I'm a business owner, so I have to pay taxes. I don't get it deducted off of shit. I gotta save money. I will save
Mhm.
an extra couple $100 a year if I know it goes directly towards educating and teachers and putting that system into play, because that is, I don't want to sound corny, but education is the future. If you're not fucking educating yourself in some manner, you're an idiot,
Yeah.
right? You're going to end up being in the lower percentile of society. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So basically what it boils down, we need more fucking money.
Yeah.
Let's get it there, but let's
Yeah.
do it the right way. And that's a whole nother
Absolutely.
7-hour discussion, but
Yeah. I'll help you end it here too, because if you take a look at some of the side podcasts that I've done, I interview former students who are like a professional boxer.
yeah,
I've got a real estate agent, got a police officer, I got, all these amazing community members from our community, who were influenced by good education,
yes,
right? And majority of it, Ashton, were people I coached, not just in class, but they drew from. I remember that one game. I remember that timeout. I remember losing. I remember winning, and all these things that are extra, right? Are there. And last but not least, a very, very hands-on thing that parents can do is get in. When I mean get involved with your students' education, not only sitting beside them once in a while and say, hey, let's go over your work, let's go over, let's see how we can improve, but also be a voice. Every school has a parent council,
yeah,
right? Like, and
in.
you hop in, listen to what's going on, because as a parent, when you listen to some of the things that are happening, you will gain more understanding, but you also gain more of a foothold in saying, I know how to help out. This year at our school, our parent council helped out with our graduation, because guess what? We can't do it alone. I can't do it. I'm doing report cards and marketing and teaching. It's too much. It's too much. So parents jumped in and they really, really helped out. And that's community right there.
There you go. That's a good way to end it, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it, and keep doing what you're doing, because the world needs a million more Davin Yus out there, brother.
Thanks, Ashton. I appreciate it. And, thanks for having me on this podcast. I'm looking forward to some punching, when things are good.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.